Well, one of the basic foundations of my administration is going to be equity, period. And that is in everything, not just in jobs, but in distribution of resources, et cetera. And I've worked with the API community pretty much all my life, and I'm very clear of the diversity and the disproportionate impact, the difference between folks who are from Southeast Asia versus Japan or China. So I think it's important to understand the communities. And it's one of the things that I love about LA. I mean, we're in the middle of the whole world. The whole world's here. If you want to go out to eat, you can pick whatever country you want to go to. And I think that that's one of the strengths of our city. So to me, it's a fundamental principle.
I've always felt that a successful city is when the decision makers reflect the people it serves. And I will ensure that as mayor, that my general managers will have proper representation from the AAPI community, that my commissioners at all departments will have proper representation of the API community. And in my district is an incredible district. It's a model United Nations that have welcomed the world because of the Pacific Ocean, the waters, the Japanese American, Filipino American here in my district, from Watts all the way down to San Pedro, the Korean American community. We are home to the Korean Friendship Bell overlooking the Pacific Ocean. As well as recognizing the Japanese American community on Terminal Island. I will do no different than what I've done as a council member. I represent the Harbor Gateway community, which is a high population of Asian Americans there, particularly the Japanese American community. And there we heard from them loud and clear that they felt that they weren't being heard in City Hall, that they felt that they weren't being embraced by the city of Los Angeles. So my office came together with them. We put together what an incredible event, the Yatai Festival, that brought in 5,000 people to the Harbor Gateway community. Then we followed up with the Aki Matsuri event in the Harbor Gateway community. And that's who we are as a city. That's who we are as Angelinos. I'm reminded, like when my family came here, they felt disconnected because they didn't know the language, or they know they had to work a little bit harder to provide food for their opportunities for their kids. And when the community came to me in Harbor Gateway, I felt like I was talking to my own family. And this is why we embraced them and we celebrated their culture, their contributions, and their heritage. And I'll continue to do that as mayor, because I've always said that representation matters.
It's a great question, because it's what I'm doing now and it's what I've always done. I've been meeting with the Korean community, I'm meeting with the Filipino community, I'm meeting with the Chinese community. It is a diverse community. It's a community that's critically important to the future of this city, because there are so many that are in this city that are working hard and adding to the culture and adding to the diversity. The diversity of our city is what gives it strength. So my office, the employment in my office, is going to represent what this city looks like. And we're going to have people from the AAPI community in the office in important roles to make sure we're serving that community. I promise you that. No different, by the way, than I've done in my own company, because all of our properties, everybody is welcome. And the diversity in my own company, including the Asian community, is very strong, and that's very important to me.
Well, this is an issue, once again, I'm not waiting for the title of mayor to lead on this issue, because I've been leading on this issue already. I was the author, joint author, as well as I actually wrote, Assembly Concurrent Resolution number 42, which actually issued the first apology to Chinese Americans due to the Chinese Exclusion Act, which was originally drafted up in our state capital before it became federal law. That was a model and a template that Representative Judy Chu, as well as then Representative Mike Honda from the Bay Area, utilized at the national level, at the federal level, to utilize when we issued the first apology for the abhorrent treatment of Chinese Americans who came, primarily from the Guangzhou region, the Cantons, region, the larger diaspora migrating to other parts of the world, but especially in California, when we build out, our railroad system and moving commerce and the transcontinental railroad that further, evolutionized, the great state of California. on issues such as, again, representing all of our historic Filipino town and Thai town, a little Bangladeshi, and a little Tokyo, in Chinatown, in Koreatown, standing up for comfort women, women, who are utilized, physically, for hard labor, as well as exploited sexually, and standing up and moving motions and resolutions, giving them voice, for the women and comfort women. And even though that happened in another continent across the Pacific Ocean, it has a huge impact on who we are as Asian Americans. Investing, more than $5 million for our Budokan, when we, officially cut that ribbon ceremony, even though we've opened it up already in Little Tokyo. That came from my AB 31. Wasn't all the money, but it was a good portion of that money in terms of helping establishing our very own Budokan in Little Tokyo, and so many other measures that we have done. I know it's been controversial among all of our communities, the whole issue of how do we deal with the issue of affirmative action and entrance, to University of California, would it be Berkeley, would it be UCLA, UC Irvine, UC San Diego, Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, Riverside, Davis, and our campus in Merced in Central Valley. I moved, more than $200 million, into communities of color, where if you were a working class Chinese American, if you're a working class Latino, if you're a working class African American, that you could access those dollars so we can have A through G requirements, so they could have those advanced placement classes, which are not, in fact, universal on all high school campuses. So instead of pitting one group against another, how can we grow together? Remember, we had that press conference in Alhambra, in fact, and we had a large coalition of Chinese Americans coming together, how we can be together and move the policies that have a huge impact, a positive impact on the human condition. I become your next mayor of the great city of Los Angeles, the second largest city in all of America, with a huge Asian American population. That one of my deputy mayors clearly will be Asian American. And when we talk about commissions, and we talk about it'll be a reflection of who we are as a great city, our present and our future.
Often people think of the Asian American community in our city as one monolith, but we know better, right? And in this campaign, I've been leading as a candidate in the way that you're alluding to, as I will do as mayor. I'm the only candidate going to all 101 neighborhoods of Los Angeles, which is an extraordinary undertaking, actually. So you'll find me in, I was in a Thai Wat in North Hollywood. I've been to Chinatown. I'm going to be in Little Tokyo and in Koreatown. There are all these different enclaves representing different groups in our community. The Korean American community has a center in Koreatown, but a major presence in Porter Ranch in that area. The Thai community has a presence in Thai Town, and as I mentioned, in North Hollywood and elsewhere. I could keep going. Each of the communities in our city requires a specialized focus. And when I was in Chinatown recently, speaking to community members about the Chinese American community needs in Chinatown, I heard a different set of objectives than I've heard when I was in Koreatown, for example. There's some commonalities, but some differences. So my deputy mayors will reflect that, and my staff will reflect that. Your question is, will I have staff that recognizes the diversity in the Asian American communities of our city and aggressively reaches out to identify community-based needs and then follows up by assuring that city services through general managers are there to respond to those needs? That's the way I govern. It's the way I always have governed.